Located somewhere at the crossroads of spirituality and the supernatural, heaven and hell, faith and fear, this is the Salvation Report.
Salvation.
And now, here is your host, world-renowned author and researcher, Robert Stanley.
Hello and welcome to another Salvation Report. I'm your holy host, Robert Stanley, Godcasting from sunny southern Florida. Today is January 18th, 2026. I got that right this time. So we have a special guest. I know that's a rare occasion around here, but tonight you're in for a special treat. And that's why the background is us hurtling through space. It's a fake. That's what we're going to discuss here with Mr. Bart Sibrel. Mr. Sibrel, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show tonight.
Sure, Robert. How you doing?
I'm well, despite the world and the affairs that we have to deal with every day. So now, for people who don't know about your work, I could read for 10 minutes off of your website, but I'm not going to do that because it's just too. I mean, it's really impressive, but let's see. This is on your website. I want people to go there, Sibrel.com, Sibrel.com. You need to go there and really check it out because you're going to spend a lot of time learning a lot of things about how we've been lied to, not only by NASA, but the CIA and other three-letter deep state agencies over the years. And they've been very busy, to say the least. So Mr. Sibrel has been kind enough to come on the show and give us now, look, I know you wrote this book, Moon Man, and that is a phenomenal book. I read all the time. I've written a couple books myself, but you obviously put your heart and soul, and I don't think you held back much of anything about that, about your experiences investigating the Apollo moon hoax. And there wasn't a question in there.
Is it a question?
No, that's not a question.
Okay.
I'd like you to elaborate on what in the world. I mean, you were very much a gung ho, Apollo kind of guy until something happened, and I forget the exact sequence, but maybe that's where we should start.
Yeah, if you don't mind my asking, Robert, it's called the Salvation Report.
Yes.
So I gather you're a believer.
I'm beyond belief. I've had personal at some point you don't. Here's what I say: knowing is better than believing. However, once you go down that path where you interface with God, and on His terms, it's very life altering and humbling, to say the least. So last year was my crash course in Christ and cancer. I'm not ill. My wife contracted cancer. So, and you probably have noticed this too. And I know you mentioned it in your book, Moon Man. I know you have a relationship with God, and you mention it in the book there more than once. But it seems to me that most of us only reach out to God and want to interact with Him when we're in the midst of a crisis. And obviously you write about that eloquently in your book, Moon Man. You were an enemy of the deep state. I don't know how you got through it other than your faith and some guardian angels.
Yeah, divine intervention. I guess if you're a believer, and then I presume your audience is, for a podcast called the Salvation Report.
Let's hope so.
One of the things about mankind is that we're born, pure. Technically, a baby is the closest entity on earth to God. It has no prejudice, no sin, and then eventually it inadvertently imitates their forefathers, their literal mother or father's sin,
Right.
without realizing it, and then they sin, and then once they sin, they're separated from God, as you know in Isaiah. And then once you're separated from God, the only way to be reunited with God is to be born again. You don't just become a slightly better person, you transform
Exactly.
if you're genuinely saved.
Yeah.
And as I'm reading the book of Acts right now,
Mhm.
and that is a beautiful book, especially about Saul's conversion, a gentleman who went from killing Christians to
Right.
being their leader. Now, I've read the Bible many times from cover to cover, and mostly it's very depressing.
Yeah, well,
It's not, there's some beautiful, parts in it and
yeah,
insightful, but a lot of it is depressing.
right,
God continually rebuking sin, and
right.
just the 6th chapter of the first book says God's heart was broken that he had made mankind and regretted it. And so when Paul was introduced, having met Jesus, gone blind, gained his sight back, and
Right.
introduced to the church, they were afraid of him. They
No,
thought he was a liar and infiltrating them, to
and a
kill him.
murderer, yes, of
Yeah,
course.
and so that probably there was a lot of humor in that. Really, at least when they later, months or years later, reflected back on it, the apostles reflected back on that. They
Well, yeah,
probably
when the
had a
rest of
good
the
laugh.
when the Sanhedrin were trying to kill him, and then the apostles had to save Paul's life more than once. So that must have, changed their mind, I
Yeah,
think.
so I bring up Paul because my conversion is similar. I went from being the biggest fan of the moon missions, more than believing they were
Ah,
real,
yeah,
having a shrine of them in my house. I
yes,
was just 4 years old, asleep in bed at the time, but my father was a high-ranking officer in the Air Force, and he got a VIP commemorative package of 9 by 12 color prints from the alleged first mission to the moon.
right.
Gave them to me.
Whoops, okay. That figures. Hang on. That was the craziest thing I'm sorry, that's never happened before.
Hey, maybe we're supposed to start all over again.
I don't no, that's fine. It just look, they say the Ghost in the Machine, remember, we're kids, Gremlins? People talked about Gremlins. And I think that was one. You must have triggered them.
Oh, I don't know, but what we were talking about was Saul's conversion from
Right,
killing Christians to being their leader, and
right.
me similarly going from someone who worshipped the moon missions, having a shrine of photographs that I had as a child, my
Mhm.
most cherished possession,
Of
and
course.
wherever we moved, there they were, 5 by 4, 20 pictures, and I saw them every day. If I
Wow.
only saw them once a day, from the age of 4 to 14, that would be 3,650 times. So I probably saw them 3 times a day. I mean, I remember just staring at them, being mesmerized, and which is a dangerous spiritual term, right?
Yeah,
So I saw
exactly.
these pictures 10,000 times, believing they were on the moon and thinking it was the greatest thing. So to go from worshiping the moon landing to being their greatest critic
Yeah.
could only happen by the truth. Now,
Ah,
Luke, Luke chapter 4, when Jesus was being tempted to break his fast, one
right,
of the things that Satan did is took him to a mountaintop, showed him the kingdoms of the world,
right,
and said if Jesus would bow down and worship Lucifer, he would give him the kingdoms of the world because they belong to Lucifer,
right.
and he gives them to his people.
Y
Okay, so that's very
right.
important to listen. We were given dominion over the earth, and I'm not sure your exact theology, but we probably understand. And
Yeah,
somehow we lost that dominion, perhaps gave it to Lucifer, because by Luke chapter 4, Lucifer has dominion over the earth. He says so.
right,
These
right,
are my kingdoms, and I give them to whoever I want.
right.
Well, John, I think chapter 8, Jesus says that Lucifer is the father of lies,
Yes.
right? We
Yes.
have the most powerful nation on earth, the United States of America. And I remember one of the leaders running for office of president and says, I will not do this if I become president. 6 weeks later, he does it.
Of course.
So, in my book, if I were writing laws to protect the people, if any politician breaks their promise, that is immediately their last day in office and their first day in jail of a 20-year sentence. That would be the proper thing.
Yeah,
So
and
we have
sorry, but you delineate this very clearly in your book, Moon Man. I was surprised to see that you had an actually, I would call it equitable form of government that you outline in your book, Moon Man. That's
yeah,
what you're talking about.
basically, yeah, that's the last chapter is
Yeah.
called what to do about this mess. Now, the poster child of conspiracy theories is they faked the moon landing,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And when you realize they actually did fake the moon landing, just go to
Mhm.
Sabrel.com. If you want, I can tell you all the proof in 1 minute how they didn't go to the moon. I can share my screen if you want me to, or you could bring up the picture on the homepage of Sabrel.com. You can
Mhm.
prove the moon landings are fake with one photograph. Go to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sabrel.com. There's a 3-minute video on the homepage,
Yes.
and we demonstrate that in sunlight, which the moon is supposed to be in sunlight, there's no
Right.
electrical lighting because it's 20 times brighter than the noon on Earth because it has no clouds, right?
Yeah.
Shadows are parallel. 2 trees, 2 people, 2 telephone poles, they run parallel. They
Yeah.
will never intersect. We show side by side a picture
Yeah.
of them claiming to be on the moon where 2 objects 5 feet apart, their shadows intersect at 90 degrees.
Right.
That's
Right.
electrical lighting, which means they're on Earth, which means they didn't go to the moon. Then we found proof. Go to homepage of Sabrel.com.
Mhm.
We have video proof of them faking being halfway to the moon with a 1-foot model of the Earth. We could show that video. The
Yeah.
lights come up and it's a 1-foot model. It's
Right.
dated 2 days into the flight. They're all identified on camera. And there's a third track of audio of the CIA telling them to fake a 4-second radio delay as if they're beyond Earth orbit, which they never left. And here we are 55 years later, and they still can't leave Earth orbit. And then that's part of it too. The logic that today, with 5 decades better technology, they can only send an astronaut 1,000th the distance to the moon. So they're claiming in 1969, when all of NASA had 1 millionth the computing power of a cell phone, they sent astronauts 1,000 times farther into space than they can do today
Right.
with 5 decades better technology. That's like saying Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic in 1927, flew 3,000 miles, and 55 years later, in 1982, not a single airplane from any country on Earth can fly across the Atlantic. And the very best airplane 55 years later can only fly 3 miles instead of 3,000.
Wow.
I mean,
Okay. That's very
that
damning.
proves it.
Yeah.
And if that's not enough,
Yeah.
right?
As if.
We have an eyewitness who, as he
Mhm.
was dying, fearing the judgment of God, confessed to killing somebody. He was the chief of security
Right.
at Cannon Air Force Base, which is the Air Force's intelligence division. The military police came in. It looks like we may be starting again, but
Sorry.
the military police came in and they investigated the homicide. And when they asked him, who you killed, and they made note of it, and then they said, why did you kill him?
Yeah.
He said to cover up the moon landing fraud because his coworker and himself participated in the fake moon landing, which was filmed at Cannon Air Force Base June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 1968. His friend thought it was morally wrong. He killed them to keep it a secret.
Wow.
Strange thing to say as you're dying, right?
Well,
So we have 4 times the proof. So I know this is a long way of answering your
No,
question.
no, no, no.
So,
That's a very complete answer. That's what you should be doing because this is so important what you're
yeah,
saying.
like I said, I can share a screen. We can spend a half a minute showing the circular Earth, and the lights come up, and it's a 1-foot model.
Yeah,
It's
I've
not
seen it.
really the
I've
Earth.
seen it. I've got it somewhere too. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I just really want to interview you because below this report on my Substack, I'm going to have the links to the various aspects of your research, your book, and these, obviously that footage you're talking about. And this gentleman you can see up on the screen here. Now, I believe he's the son of the man you're talking about.
Correct. He is the source who was there for his father's deathbed confession.
Right.
And after talking to me, CIA agents confronted him and threatened to kill him and his family if he ever spoke to me again
Right.
about his father's participation in the fake moon landing.
Wow.
His father was the chief of security. He stood beside President Johnson while they filmed the fake moon landing on a fake lunar set
Mhm.
inside of an airplane hangar. And Johnson gave him a list of 15 people who were allowed in to witness it. He
Mhm.
saved the list. We published it in the book. So we have an eyewitness. We have shadows indicating electrical lighting. We have a segment of them using a 1-foot model of the Earth to pretend it's floating in space, which is faking being halfway to the moon, meaning
Right.
they can't even leave Earth orbit. And we have the logic that you can't have 1,000 times greater space traveling technology in 1969 than today. If it weren't for people wanting to believe their team won the Super Bowl and not wanting to accept the fact that they cheated, people would see it for what it is. So
Right.
my point is, to build up to your question,
Yeah.
when I saw that footage of them faking being halfway to the moon, it dawned on me they actually did fake the moon landing.
Yes.
And when you realize that's the world that we live in, if the truth comes out, we would need to have a constitutional Congress, and we need to rewrite the laws and to such a degree that would, to the largest percentage, prevent this from ever happening again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for example, we have Robert Kennedy Jr. Okay, he has more access to the JFK files than Oliver Stone does.
Right.
His opinion is, which is my opinion because he's the expert, not me, he says with 100% certainty, the CIA murdered their own president. I call that election interference, don't you?
Yeah, to say the
And
least.
so a few years later, Robert McNamara, press secretary, he said Johnson wants to restart the Vietnam War, which Kennedy, closed. But he said the public is against it. We need something like Pearl Harbor, because
Ah,
the day before Pearl Harbor, 90% of Americans were against entering World War II.
right.
And one day later, 90% wanted to get even, right?
Right.
So him and the CIA, according to his deathbed confession, they completely fabricated a attack from a North Vietnamese ship on an American ship in the Gulf of Tonkin.
Right.
Congress passed a law starting the war, the
Wow.
Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, based on an event that never happened. You see, so they're killing their own president. They're killing tens of thousands of their own soldiers on a complete fabrication. I
Yeah.
don't think they're going to have a problem faking a video image. It's just
Well,
that it's a positive lie.
according to
Now,
your book, there was 13 astronauts that were killed too,
there
intentionally.
were there were there were several astronauts who were killed, who would not participate in the moon landing
Right.
fraud. That's not even my opinion.
Right.
That's the opinion of the dead astronauts' relatives who I
Yes.
interviewed for a total of 7 hours.
Right.
Okay. Betty Grissom told me that her husband, Virgil Grissom, was going to be the first man to walk on the moon.
Right.
And he couldn't understand how they're claiming in 1967 they're going to go to the moon in 2 years, when he says they can't even get a wired intercom to work between two buildings.
Yeah.
The stick to pick up the first lunar sample with the bag on the end of it, the bag breaks and falls off 6 weeks before the first mission to the moon. They
Wow.
can't even get that to work, not mention fuel and radiation protection and life support system and
Yeah.
all these things. You can't have a single element not work and have the mission be successful. And do
Right.
you realize that in aerospace, in the entire history of aerospace, there's not a single aircraft that took off and landed on the first occasion? Never happened. The
Hmm.
747 was built with 10 years newer technology than the Apollo rocket, and it took 168 attempts to get off the ground.
Wow. I didn't know
Can
that.
you believe that? So the only time, even the Wright brothers plane, which was a
Yeah.
kite with the motor,
Yeah.
didn't work the first time.
Sure.
The only aerospace mission that has ever worked on the first occasion, coincidentally, is the most complicated one of all time.
Yeah.
And then NASA has never kept a schedule, not a single time in their entire history, except the most complicated mission of all time.
Hmm.
They said in 2014, with 5 decades better technology, they're going to have people orbiting the moon in 2018. They're 4 years behind schedule, and they only have mannequins. orbiting the moon.
Right, right,
And
right.
somehow 50 years earlier, you can play golf and drive cars on the moon. So, in any case, when you realize they did fake the moon landing, these people are at large, right? And it's from a spiritual point of view. Jesus said, the truth will make you free.
Right.
So, if the truth makes you free, then lies keep us slaves.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
our country was founded because of tyranny, and the Declaration of Independence is the first document of our nation, not the Constitution, which says when any nation becomes destructive of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it.
Right.
According to Betty Grissom, her husband was so infuriated that they had junk equipment that they were claiming was going to the moon. He
Mhm.
complained to his superiors and they did nothing about it because they knew they were likely going to fake it and hadn't yet informed the astronauts.
Right.
So, days before he was murdered, he took a bunch of reporters up to the top of the rocket where he affixed a lemon the size of a grapefruit. So, the man to be the pilot on the rocket to the moon publicly declared it in front of journalists a piece of junk, a lemon.
Right.
He received death threats from people in the government. He was under Secret Service protection the day he died. The
Wow.
day before which, according to his wife, who I interviewed, he telephoned her from NASA and said, "Hun, for some strange reason, the CIA is all over the launch pad today. I've
Uh-huh.
been here for 3 years, never seen the CIA. Why did they show up today inspecting the equipment?" The very next day, he's dead from faulty equipment.
Well,
He was
and
murdered by the CIA. So our country has become destructive of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The first
true.
one is life. They're
Yeah.
murdering their own people. We have proof of that 5 years earlier, Operation Northwoods, which even Wikipedia,
Yeah.
lying Wikipedia, has to admit because the documents are publicly available that Kennedy's Pentagon suggested that they randomly kill 200 Americans, blame it on Cuba in order to
Mm.
start a war with Cuba.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you, but I think when you plan to kill people, that's called attempted murder, isn't it?
Yeah.
How come his staff wasn't carted off to jail and thrown in prison for attempted murder?
Mhm.
So they're willing to kill their president, their people, and these are the people faking the moon landing. The problem is this has become a god to people. I mean, think about it. What is mankind's greatest accomplishment? Putting a man on the moon. Now,
Yeah.
as you know, Jesus said to start a tower and to not finish it proves to the world that you're a fool. And
Huh.
this is the primary reason why they faked the moon landing. Kennedy started the Apollo program. He
Right.
said we will put a man on the moon by the end of the 1960s, and it couldn't be done. They were going to look like a fool before the world. And to protect their pride, they falsified the moon landing.
Right.
So if you go to Sabrel.com, on the home page is my film. A funny thing happened on the way to the moon. It cost $1 million, financed by someone who builds rockets for NASA, who knows the moon missions are fake, who wanted to expose it. And we open up with the Tower of Babel, which
Wow.
says, according to Genesis 6, they did it to show off, to make a name for themselves. It
Right.
remained an unfinished tower, a rebuke to the world. Then we show the Titanic, the largest machine of the 20th century, that put in print the ship that God himself could not sink. So we have the Tower of Babel, never finished. We have the Titanic, never made one voyage. And then we
Mm.
have Richard Nixon, when he knew they were not on the moon, nevertheless said, it is second in greatness only to God making the universe."
Whoa, I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's what he said. And
Wow.
so when you see the footage that I uncovered of them faking being halfway to the moon,
Yeah.
that's what convinced me. It convinced two
Mm.
NBC news directors that we're going to broadcast it nationwide until the federal government threatened to pull their plug.
Yeah, and that's what made you an enemy of the state was possession of that, somebody leaked that to you, right? I mean, it wasn't, that doesn't happen by accident.
Well, yeah. So I know that's a long way to answer your question of the last chapter of the book, what to do about this mess. Now,
Yeah.
I led all of that up because you have to understand first, they did fake the moon landing.
Right.
And as long as they're claiming that it was real when it's not, those gangsters are in charge.
Right.
And the only way to take them down is to tell the truth about it. Now, if
Yeah.
that were to some miraculously happen some way, then what could you do? What monopoly board rules could you rewrite to hopefully prevent that from happening again? There's a lot of them, but one of the easiest is to have Congress elected by lottery.
Oh, right.
If
Yeah.
you are able to decide a capital case by lottery, right, whether or not someone is executed for murder or not, and the
Mhm.
people who decide that are chosen at random,
Right.
then I'm pretty sure deciding whether or not to put contains GMOs on a bottle of ketchup, I think they can handle that as well.
Yeah.
And so if you have the Congress and the Senate unelected, then there are 99% less chance they can be corrupted. There's no lobbying, there's no election, there's no payback of favors. You do one term limit for everything, maybe 5 years. You can be mayor once, governor once, sheriff
Right.
once, Congress once, president once. And then those 435, or however many you decide, representatives can nominate 5 people for president of the United States. So even the presidency, in a way, was chosen at random. You choose several hundred representatives at random. They nominate 5 people for president, and you have debates where they have to answer the exact same question. You have rules. You can't have an easy question for one guy and a hard question for another like they do. They should
Yeah.
all have to answer the same question, right? That's
Right.
fair, right? And then you have the general public vote on it. You narrow it from 5 to 3 to 2 to 1. And that's one way of doing it. And then you have to reverse the direction of authority. When Reagan was president, they coined a term called trickle down economics, which was the theory that if you give billionaires tax breaks, they'll hire more butlers and it'll help the middle class.
Mhm.
I suppose it's one way of looking at it, but if electricity can go down a copper wire left to right, it can go down right to left. So this little banking crisis we had, whenever that was, instead of giving the banks trillions of dollars, you could have given every American about $20,000,
Right.
who would have gone out and bought cars and washers and dryers, which would trickle up to
Right.
the billionaires who own those corporations. So why is it that people in the District of Columbia can tell the governor of California what they can and cannot do? Why is it that the governor in Sacramento can tell the mayor of LA what they can and cannot do? Why is it that the mayor can tell a resident association what they can and cannot do? And why is it that a resident association can tell a homeowner that they cannot plant a garden in their front yard because it's not aesthetically pleasing? You need to plant that in your backyard. So people who don't live there are telling the property owner what they can and cannot do on their own property. Why
Yeah.
not reverse everything? The resident association cannot tell the owner what they can and cannot do, and the mayor cannot tell the resident association what they can and cannot do. The mayor doesn't live in that subdivision. If the subdivision wants to ban guns or have open carry, that's their right.
Yeah.
The mayor cannot be told what they can and cannot do by the governor, and the governor cannot be told what they can and cannot do by the president. Why not reverse it?
Yeah. Well,
You
that's
see?
that's what I love about the Constitution is the negative liberties that restrain or constrain the government from basically tyranny to some extent. Obviously, they found a way around it. Can you see the screen that I've got up there?
Yeah, you have 4 astronauts will soon, allegedly, take an unprecedented path to the moon, but why aren't they landing?
Yeah, and why are they calling it unprecedented if we've already been there? And by the way, this is yesterday. This is yesterday on CNN Science.
Mhm. Well, yeah, CNN's an interesting
Yeah.
little bird there. CNN reported, I think, in 1996 that the radiation belt surrounding the Earth is more dangerous than previously believed.
Right.
Previously believed was the Apollo astronauts going through it to the moon and back, and now the latest engineer from NASA says they must solve these radiation challenges before they send people through this region of space, meaning
Right.
the radiation challenges have not been solved yet, and they must be before people can leave Earth, go through the radiation to the moon, and back through the radiation, meaning they haven't gone to the moon. He said we must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. So that's saying they never went to the moon, believe it or not. My
Yeah.
book, which is about all of this, the behind the scenes adventures of the making of the movie, the interviews with the surviving family members of Apollo astronauts who say they were murdered by the CIA, the deathbed confession, that's all in my book. And it's interactive with about 17 video links that back up everything that I'm saying. You'll hear NASA's own engineer say the technology to go to the moon has not been invented yet.
Right.
You'll hear a space shuttle astronaut say, we hope to go to the moon eventually. You'll hear someone else say, this will be the first time we leave Earth orbit. So I don't know why they can go to the moon on the first attempt with 1 minute to computing power cell phone. And now Elon Musk says in order to go to the moon, it's going to take 30 times the fuel of the Apollo rocket.
Right. Yeah, I saw that. And so this, okay, 2014 was significant because that's when they announced that the radiation belts were more dangerous than we understood, right?
Correct.
Okay, so
Mhm.
check this out. Most people don't know about this. This is from November of 2014. Let me see if I can get back in here. Where is it? Yes. So this is from the University of Boulder, Colorado. They discovered, don't ask me how, an invisible shield. If it's invisible, how do they discover it? All right. But anyway, it's allegedly 7,200 miles above Earth that blocks so-called killer electrons moving around the planet nearly at light speed and have been known to threaten astronauts, fry satellites, and degrade space systems during intense solar storms. Anyway, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is not part of the Van Allen radiation belt. It's something else, just so people can kind of get an idea of what we're talking about. I'm obviously not a scientist, but this is compelling to me that there is this, well, they call it a shield, but come on.
Well, there's radiation and then there's high energy protons.
Right.
And the radiation belts, in a way, protect the Earth and life on it
Yeah.
from intense solar and galactic radiation.
Right.
At the same time, it makes going to the moon difficult because not only would you have to,
Difficult.
according to Elon Musk, ferry up 30 trips of fuel. I mean, we have it in writing,
Yes.
and we have Ron Braun saying the largest rocket you can build can only achieve Earth orbit, and
Right.
that's the Apollo rocket. It
Right.
never left Earth orbit.
That
We
was a
have proof
Saturn
of this.
rocket, right? That was a
Correct.
Saturn. Yeah. Which they
Yeah,
don't have
because
anymore.
and we have proof of this because we have Apollo 11 on camera faking being halfway to the moon with
Right,
a 1
right.
foot model of the Earth from Earth orbit.
Right.
So we know they can't leave Earth orbit, otherwise they wouldn't be faking being halfway to the moon. And so that's why it's such a big deal to leave Earth orbit. First of
Right.
all, they didn't have enough fuel.
Right.
And then
And second of all,
secondly,
yeah.
according to Kelly Smith, an engineer at NASA, we must solve these radiation challenges before we send people through this region of space.
Right.
So that means the challenges have not been solved, and they have to before people can go through it, which means they didn't go to the moon because they supposedly went through
Yeah.
the radiation belt and back, and they didn't even have enough fuel.
Right.
Elon Musk says it's going to take 30 fuel trips in order to go to the moon, 15 rocket launches, which carry twice the amount of fuel as the Apollo rocket, or 30 times the fuel.
Right.
Minimum. It could
Right.
actually take more. Von Braun said the same thing. You
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
build a space station and ferry up
Exactly.
fuel. And then from there, you can orbit the moon and not even land. He never even said land.
Well, that's
He
what they
just
say
said-
about
he
this
just said
Artemis.
orbit the moon. Yeah.
That's what they're saying about that other thing. That's why they're not going to land. Is
Well, yeah,
that-
because here's a
Thinking about
problem with landing. Okay, you have to land a rocket vertically. That's the
Right.
first problem.
which
okay?
takes a lot of fuel.
Well, it takes a lot of computer power. Okay,
Okay.
Elon Musk landed a rocket vertically, right? Okay.
Right.
So that was about what, 5, 6 years ago. And it had 600 million times more computing power than the lunar lander from the Apollo missions. Okay.
Wow.
And that's because it has 6 rockets all around the side
Yeah.
of it,
Yeah.
plus the main thruster, in order to gimbal that delicately to land. People
Yeah.
don't know this, but the space shuttle lands under computer control because it
Ah,
is so aerodynamically sensitive. It cannot be landed manually. No human being could land that manually. It's landed under computer control. In fact, it has one main computer and 4 backups
wow.
of the same computer because it will crash without the computer. It's that aerodynamically sensitive, and to land a rocket vertically is even more
Oh, of course.
aerodynamically sensitive. Do you
Right.
understand?
Right.
Gliding down could be done, but to land a rocket vertically, you have to have rockets all around the side and gimbal that thing, and to
Yeah.
do that, you have to have 600 million times the computing power as the Apollo lander on the moon, which landed vertically,
Right.
allegedly.
Yeah.
And yet, even with 600 million times more computing power and 5 decades of better rockets and computers, the first time Elon Musk tried to land a rocket vertically, it
Oh,
blew
yeah.
up.
Yeah.
The second time, it blew up. The third time, it blew up. The fourth time, it blew up.
Yeah.
The fifth time, it worked. So the reason why they can't land on the moon, the first one, is it's extremely dangerous to
Yeah.
land a rocket vertically, even on Earth, when you can see the rocket in front of you and attempting to assist it land vertically. It's so
Right.
dangerous.
Right.
And then you have to protect yourself from micrometeorites.
Oh, yeah. That
There's
was
no
right.
atmosphere on the moon. So thousands of micrometeorites are hitting the moon every second.
Right.
These are particles of sand traveling at 25,000 miles an hour. A
Wow.
particle of sand traveling at 25,000 miles an hour will go through the space capsule, your space suit, your
Yes.
brain. And
Everything.
von Braun said there would be a 50% chance every 24 hours of a fatality from
Wow.
micrometeorites, meaning you can't stay there for 3 days,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
then you'd have a 200% chance of being killed,
Right.
which is what they claim to have done, right?
Yeah.
And then you'd have to have the fuel to lift back off the moon.
Okay.
And then this is the even more complicated part. You allegedly have the lunar lander command module orbiting the moon at 3,000 miles per hour.
Yeah. You have to dock perfectly.
And you have a 64K computer going from 0 miles per hour, perfectly synchronized with 3,000 miles per hour on the first attempt. If they're off by more than a tenth of a second, they miss and are lost in space.
Wow.
And that's what they'd have to do that too.
Yeah.
And they can't. They can't. If they could, they would. You
Yeah.
understand that?
Yeah. Right.
The South Pole has 100-mile-per-hour winds. It has 100 degrees below zero, and on Earth, it took 6 attempts. 5 crews died before the 6th crew made it to the South Pole on Earth.
Wow.
Imagine how hard the moon is to do on the first attempt.
Well,
And then you'd have to, synchronize. You'd have to have all of that fuel. So when the atomic bomb was first blown up in 1945, just 10 years later,
mhm.
atomic bombs were 1,000 times more powerful. So if they could go to the moon on the first attempt, we would have been on Mars 10 years later. We'd
Right.
be in another solar system by now, and there'd be bases all over the moon. There are bases at the South Pole because it can be done.
Right.
If it could be done in 1969, there would be bases all over the moon. It would be commercially exploited. You know why they're not going to land? Because they can't. Otherwise, they would, right?
Yes.
I mean, come on. You're there. Why go 90% and not finish up the job? Because they can't. And I suspect, I'll put money on it, so that they're going to postpone this orbit to the moon. When does it say they're going to go to the moon by? Go back to that article. They
Okay,
say
hang
we're
on.
planning-
Wait a minute. You got to do one thing at a time here because I'm not that good at clicking at all this stuff. This also came out this week from the U.S. Department of Energy claiming, and this is just ridiculous to me, why they need to put They keep claiming they're going to put reactors and bases and all that stuff on the moon. And clearly, based on everything that I've read and heard from you, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, they've said they're going to return to the moon in 5 years. They've said it 10 times, starting with Reagan. And then Bush Sr. said it. And then Clinton said it twice. Bush Jr. said it twice. Obama said it once. And Trump said it twice, that they're going to return to the moon in 5 years, and they've never done it. Never done it.
Yeah.
Amazing, isn't it? They can go to the moon on the first attempt ahead of schedule with 1960s technology, which had 1/millionth the computing power of a cell phone.
Yeah.
And 50 years later, they've postponed returning to the moon 10 times.
Yep. So I tried to go back to CNN. Now they're trying to paywall me. So I couldn't actually get in there. I just checked while we were talking.
Yeah, I'd like to get that. Yeah, because I got an an email from somebody saying, who thinks we went to the moon. What are you going to do? This was 4 years ago when Artemis has people walking on the moon next year. I'm like, trust me, they're going to postpone it.
Yeah, did you want to put money on that? I mean,
yeah, I'll bet anybody $1 million, and I'll pay 1,000,000 to 1 odds.
Whoa.
I'll pay $1 billion if you're right, and you only have to pay me $1 million if I'm right. If they have men walking on the moon on the schedule that they said. Okay, so right now I think Trump said, first Trump said they're going to have men on the moon in 2024.
Yeah,
of course that didn't happen. Then he said they're going to have men on the moon in 2025. That didn't happen. Then he said they're going to have men orbiting the moon in 2026. Going backwards here now. And so I guess they're saying now they're going to have men walking on the moon in 2027. So if anyone wants to, whatever the latest claim is, putting men with feet on the moon, if they keep that schedule, I'll pay you $1 billion, and you only have to pay me $1 million if they postpone it.
Right. Okay.
Take me up on that.
Yeah. I mean, we're laughing, but it isn't funny. This is very serious.
It's serious because
the consequences.
The true seriousness of it is really only your podcast and one or two others brings out in the hundreds of interviews I've done, which is the spiritual significance.
Yeah, I know.
This is the modern day Tower of Babel.
Right.
You understand?
Yeah.
Go to Sibrel.com. Watch A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. It is a spiritually put together movie starting with the Tower of Babel, the Titanic, and Nixon saying the greatest event since creation itself about the moon landing.
Wow.
You see? By the most powerful nation on earth that claims to be the most honest. You see? We are living in a fallen world. Jesus can be Lord of your life, but according to the scriptures, Lucifer is Lord of the earth at the moment.
Right. For now. Yeah.
And that's why mankind's greatest accomplishment is a lie. And then the public has this Stockholm syndrome where they're defending their own criminals who are embezzling their money, deceiving them, and murdering their brethren to cover up their crimes.
Right.
I mean, can you imagine? This guy, Cyrus Eugene Akers, was the chief of security at the base where they filmed the fake moon landing. And as he's dying because he believed in God, he says to his son, who you showed a still of,
right,
I got to get something off my chest. I'm a murderer.
Wow.
I killed a fellow employee in 1968 at Cannon Air Force Base. The military police came in to investigate. And when they asked him, why did you kill him? He said, well, to cover up the moon landing fraud, because he was going to go public with it. And we were sworn to secrecy.
Wow.
You see, this is the world that we live in. Yeah. And if it were an honorable secret, right, then they wouldn't have to threaten to kill his family members if he told the truth about it, would they?
Well, and
would anyone honorable?
No, of course not.
Threaten to kill a guy sworn to secrecy's children if he told the truth about it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That's
but I listened to his son.
There.
I thought his son said that the videotape of the confession was burned up in a fire.
Yeah, they tried to destroy as much proof of it as possible.
Right.
After he spoke to me, the guy went out, on a shopping trip that day, had excellent security, multiple cameras,
Yeah.
password. They defeated all of that. They
Mm.
took everything about his father that they could find, the computer data, pictures, whatever they can find.
Wow.
I filed, or a colleague of mine filed the Freedom of Information Act, and they actually say, believe it or not, the federal government says Cyrus Eugene Akers was never in the United States Air Force.
Wow.
That's their official statement. And yet I have film of the military cemetery that I went to his tombstone. He's in a military cemetery. He's in a federal government cemetery. It says military police, United States Air Force. And yet
Wow.
the Air Force just said in writing that he was never in the Air Force. So why would they say that when he's in a military institution unless they're erasing him because of a government secret? Why would the guy you showed a picture of be visited by 2 CIA agents 4 years ago and threatened with death, and his family threatened with death just for talking to me about the moon landing fraud that his father eyewitnessed and murdered
Right.
somebody to cover up? The United States Intelligence Senate Committee on Intelligence was involved in giving that guy whistleblower protection. This was 4 years ago. The FBI was involved. The White House was involved. This
Mhm.
is serious. Why would all those people be involved in this if the guy, you know,
Yeah.
really went to the moon and was just making stuff up,
Okay,
right?
so Cyrus's son was in that video where he's testifying about what basically what you just said, but in greater detail. But now I think he said he was dying, and this would be released after his death. Is that what happened?
Correct. Yeah. He was dying of cancer as well.
Wow.
I debated a long time whether to put the murder that his father confessed to in the book.
Uh-huh.
I chose not to because the son was still alive.
I see.
But now that he's died, I talk about it. Not only did he confess to participating in the moon landing deception, he actually murdered somebody to cover it up. In fact, that was the first thing out of his mouth. He wasn't so concerned that he had counterfeited a moon landing
Yeah.
as it was as he had broken one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not
Not
kill.
kill. Yes, of course.
And we know that if you confess your sin
Right.
and renounce it, meaning do your best to not repeat it, you are forgiven. And that was what he did on his deathbed. And you can go to Sabrell.com, see that testimony of his son who was there. And he went into great detail. And again, President Johnson stood beside this man at Cannon Air Force Base while they filmed the fake moon landing and gave him, as the chief of security, a list of 15 people who were allowed in to eyewitness it.
Right.
And Neil
right.
Armstrong is on the list. Buzz Aldrin is on the list. They weren't even in the spacesuits of the television picture.
Wow. That
And
can I there's one burning question I have for you. Probably more than one, but why did they do Apollo 13? What was that all
well,
about?
because after, I mean, let's just imagine right now, they're going to the South Pole for the very first time.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, they're 10 feet away. We would probably pause the recording, right? Say, you know, let's just watch this. Let's take a
yeah,
break.
yeah.
They plant the flag, okay, and then let's say 6 months later we're talking and they're going the second time. Do we have it on the second time? Well, no.
No. Yeah, people have lost interest.
We've
for
seen
sure.
that already, right?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that's what happened. They were
Oh, I see.
embezzling 80% of the budget. All they did is orbit the Earth.
Right.
They never went to the moon. The spaceship didn't have to work. The spacesuits didn't have to work.
Yeah.
All they did was orbit the Earth, and it was a cash cow. So
Right.
after they went to the moon the second time, people telephoned the network and complained that reruns of I Love Lucy were being interrupted. So the Illuminati came up with Apollo 13, and
Of
on
course.
April 13th,
Of course.
at 1313 military time, had this accident to add drama,
I
you
got
see,
it.
back to it. And
Right.
this just shows you the sheer arrogance. They didn't just fake the moon landing one time, which
Right.
would have been smarter. They just, once people accepted it, it was easier to fake it on the later missions. And so they just kept milking it and milking it and milking it for all
Uh-huh.
that it's worth.
Which is like, I
And
think it was like 5% of the GDP at the time, right? Was being
yeah, I
spent on
don't
this?
know, but it's an equivalent today of $250 billion.
Yeah, it was not chump change. It was a lot of money, a lot of manpower, wasted on something that could
And
have
well, and
actually been.
then one of the clips at Sabrel.com, again, my book is interactive,
Yeah.
is NASA saying, get this, and you've probably heard it, they intentionally destroyed all of the moon landing
Yes.
technology. Now,
Yes.
come on. If you were ever going to, in the history of the world, destroy a technology, it might be the atomic bomb. Okay. We used it in
Yeah.
World War II, but let's just never go there again.
Yes.
But like I said, just 10 years later, atomic bombs were 1,000 times more powerful. So if
Right.
you really went to the moon, the last thing you would do would be to destroy the blueprints, the schematics, but that's exactly what they did. Because later it could be proven that the rocket didn't have enough fuel to leave Earth orbit, the lunar module didn't have radiation protection, the lunar module didn't have enough battery power to combat 250 degrees outside. It
Wow.
didn't have enough fuel to leave Earth orbit. So they destroyed all of that.
Mhm.
They destroyed the telemetry data where the rocket really was. And get this, they also destroyed all of the original videos
Yes.
2 days after Ron Howard asked them to be transferred to HD for an IMAX movie.
Oh,
They said, give us a couple of days. And then they said, well, we lost it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So Ron Howard, executive producer on an IMAX movie, wanted to believe the moon landings are real, despite his grandfather warning him that they were not real.
Wow.
And you have this huge screen, and in the very smallest 5% of the screen, you see videos of the moon landing.
That's
Because he
nuts.
rented them from Blockbuster, their VHS. You can see the tracking line at the
Yeah.
bottom.
Yeah.
And they're faking the moon landing, and they destroyed the original videotapes of it, and he had to rent VHS because there was so little footage available.
Wow.
They would never destroy a technology that cost $250 billion,
Right.
but that's exactly what they would do if they perpetrated a fraud. You see? So
Yes.
that's further proof that they didn't go to the moon as well.
Yeah. So now this thing about the Van Allen, well, it's not just a belt. There's multiple layers that you have to go through. And aren't there meteorites when on the way to the moon as well?
I would think so. But I don't know.
Okay.
The radiation belts might protect you from those. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but
But
that's only a
I know
small.
from reading Von Braun's book,
Yeah.
he calculated if you just stay there, you'd have a 50% chance of a catastrophic failure every 24 hours. He said you'd immediately have to go into a pre-existing cave on the moon,
Right.
or bring with you a lead shelter, like
Sure.
a lead igloo, basically,
So
and live in a lead igloo.
yeah,
is what he
that's
said.
always gonna happen.
I'd
So
like to read that article. Why does it say? Send me those 2 articles if you don't mind afterwards.
I'll
It
do that.
says, but it asks the question, but why can't they land?
Yeah.
I'd like to see what excuse they give for why can't they land. Why can't land? Because they can't.
Because
So if
they
they
can't.
can't land, if they can't land with 5 decades better technology, I mean, that's absurd.
Yeah, and the
That's
word unprecedented, that was pretty, telling also. But I wanted to ask you though about the poles of the planet. Supposedly, I mean, the way it's always shown here is that if you launched from the poles, or you could get somehow into orbit through the polar regions, would that avoid the radiation?
almost all of it. The problem is the reason why they launch in Florida is because it's the southernmost part of the United States.
Yeah.
They're trying to get for fuel efficiency, they're
Uh-huh.
trying to get as close to the equator as possible.
Uh-huh.
And the problem is the closest to the equator is where the radiation belts are the
Radiation
strongest.
is- Yeah,
So some of my opponents said, well, they went through the parts of the belt, they zigzagged and went through the pole, or they zigzagged and went through, not according to their own flight diagrams. They
Right.
went right through the center of them, which is approximately an hour and a half through them to the moon and an hour and a half back, or about 3 hours at radiation that we have in writing. Von Braun says is 100 times a lethal dose.
Wow. Well, it says it here on this electron radiation belts. That doesn't sound good. I mean, you could get it sounds like you get electrocuted. And here, the International Space Station is right next to the Earth. It's before it gets into the radiation with the
Yeah, it's
first
well
radiation.
below. The radiation belts start at about 1,000 miles up. The
Okay.
space station is only 250 miles
Okay.
above the Earth. So pick a city that's 250 miles away from you, make it vertical, and that's as high up as they ever go, except to the moon. They'd
Uh-huh.
have to go through the radiation to the moon. They went up 100 miles above that in 1996, and they saw the radiation with their eyes closed from a distance
Right.
of about 650 miles. So imagine there's a nuclear meltdown in a city 650 miles away from you. You close your eyes and you face it, and you can see the radiation
Of
like
course.
fireworks in your closed eyes. That's what happened when they went just 100 miles
Right.
above the space station orbit, 650 miles below the beginning of the radiation. That's
Wow.
when CNN said in 1996 the radiation belt surrounding the Earth is more dangerous than previously believed. Well, what is
Yeah.
previously believed? When they allegedly went to the moon and back.
Yes.
And now they're saying, according to NASA's own engineer, we must solve these radiation challenges before we send people through this region of space, meaning number one, the radiation problem has not been resolved, and you have to do it before you can go to the moon. So if they're not resolved and you have to do it before you go to the moon, it means they didn't go to the moon. So there
Okay.
you go.
Is there any technology that you're aware of, secretly off the books, unacknowledged special access programs that would allow us to go pass through these radiation belts and be actually outside of that region?
I don't know. I wrote another book called Aliens from Planet
Yeah,
X.
I
I've
saw
done
that.
about a decade of research. This is at Sabrel.com. You just scroll down.
Yeah.
It has to do with the alleged existence of aliens from outer space. Now,
Uh-huh.
I'm not an expert of the JFK assassination. That happened before I was born. So I study other people's research, and the experts becomes my opinion.
Uh-huh.
I
Oh,
studied the top two UFO researchers, Jacques Vallée and Alan Hynek.
uh-huh.
And after 4 decades of independent research, they came to the very same conclusion, which is number one, UFOs are real. Number two, they're not from outer space, they're
Right.
from Earth.
Right.
And number three, they're demonic.
Correct.
Now, Genesis 6 says
Yes.
angels intermarried with humans and produced a deformed hybrid of giants called the Nephilim. That's what
Right.
it says.
Well, it
You
means
can
fallen
argue
ones. It
against that theology all you want,
No,
but that's
I'm
what it
not.
says.
Yeah. But it also means in Hebrew, it means fallen ones,
That's right.
not just giants. Although there was giants, there's also they have it's a descriptive of them. They are part of
Yeah.
the fallen ones, the fallen angels. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So just to say theoretically, they could go to the moon in 1969. Let's just say
Yeah.
they did.
Yeah.
Okay. Imagine the technology that would exist 6,000 years later.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if fallen angels have been around for thousands of years, presumably before the creation of the earth,
Uh-huh.
they may have access to technology.
Well, of course they do.
And if they've been around for thousands of years, when people see UFOs come out of the ocean, that's the perfect place to hide.
Uh-huh.
And it's the perfect type of vehicle. You could have an amphibious vehicle that could become a submarine or a flying aircraft. Now, could such an aircraft go through the radiation and back? I don't know. I don't think they would want to. I mean, there's no life on the moon. So what would be the point?
Well,
You know what
my
I mean?
point I'm sorry, but I was being rhetorical with you. I've
Yeah.
seen the technology, I know it exists, but yes, it's from here and it's fallen angel technology, just like they gave us that technology. Just like in the beginning, the book of Enoch, it talks about how they give us weapons of war and teach us how to use this technology and drugs and all this stuff.
Pharmacology,
Yes.
makeup,
Yeah,
right?
the word
You know,
did
women's makeup and all this
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
So do you know where the word pharmacopoeia comes from?
Well, pharmacology in the book of Revelation is Greek. It means sorcery, I
Yeah, but
think.
the name Pharmaros, it comes from the name Pharmaros. It's one of the fallen angels that came
Oh,
down
okay.
on Mount. Yeah, it's his
Whose
name.
specialty was chemistry.
Yeah, right. Drugs. Why not? He's the drug dealer. So, but the bottom line is, yeah, the technology exists. However, my understanding is they're imprisoned here by God. They lost the war in heaven, the insurrection, the whatever you want to call it, the civil war. They lost, and they are imprisoned here. So again, that goes back to why I showed you the Star Trek like shield that's 7,200 miles up and it envelops the Earth. I believe they know that's like a bug zapper to them. If they try and leave, that would be their own demise. They'd be,
That could be it exactly. Maybe
yeah,
God made the radiation belt a dual
yeah,
purpose to protect us from radiation and
and
also to prevent us. I have this little theory. I seldom shared it. I may have shared it one other time. What if the end of the world would come on the day and moment that we could step our foot on another world? God would say that that's enough. And so maybe maybe step going to the moon would bring about the end of the world. I don't know.
well, we're in a fallen state. You already
Maybe
said
the
that.
radiation. Go ahead.
You know we're in a fallen state. We shouldn't be going anywhere until we clean up our act. In fact, we don't get to go to heaven until we ask for forgiveness and are redeemed. So why should we be allowed to physically leave this world in this current state when we're fallen? We're just going to contaminate other worlds if we could get there, right?
Right. People claim they're intellectual, intelligent geniuses or whatnot. Uh, Even if you could go to the moon,
Yeah. Then what?
to spend $250 to show off,
Oh, that's right.
$250 billion to show off, plant a flag, and come back. Hey, I beat you.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
better than you. When half the world doesn't have clean drinking water, and half the world
Right.
doesn't have indoor plumbing, and half the world doesn't have concrete floors,
Right.
I would say that's not intelligent. That's not a genius. I would say that's wrong thinking. I'm all for exploring Mars, Jupiter, and the moon after we get our act together. And
Right.
otherwise, it's like throwing $250 billion into the sun. It's just wasting money. But it employs all these people. Well, great. Employ that many people to desalinate the water of Africa. Why
Yes.
not do that? Right? Why don't
Right.
we prove our true intelligence by ending poverty, ending disease, ending hunger, ending
Yes.
war? That
Yeah.
would be truly intelligent, not
Right.
jerking off, if I dare say, on
Well,
intellectual masturbation by going into outer space when we can't even take care of our own planet.
but okay, you're kind of making my point for me again, though, is that if we could, we would bring all our problems with us, including weapons systems, right? Because
Well,
that's
I suppose so, but they can't survive on the moon. So this
I
whole
know,
idea
I know. I'm
of,
just saying if
yeah,
we can't stop being who we are. I mean, collectively. I mean, you and I are saved, right? You're
at the
saved.
moment,
Yeah.
unless I turn my back on God,
Well,
yeah.
oh, good point, good point. But I'm saying we're different because of that relationship with God. But collectively, uh-uh. No, we haven't gone there yet. We're not in a position to leave this world because we act in accordance with the Lord of this world, the father of lies. He's a murderer and a liar. And so this is how our society is functioning. So here again, this week, this article came up. $1 million reservation for a lunar hotel that doesn't even exist, and allegedly they're going to start building it in 2032. And they're going to offer things like low gravity golf and lunar walks. This is complete insanity, honestly. Can you see that? Okay, I think yeah, he checked out. I don't blame him. I can't believe this. Come back, Mr. Sabrell. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Can you come back? Okay, somebody's messing with the technology again. It's not me. I did not. Da, 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 da. Okay, stop sharing. Will that help? And now he can't get back in. Or maybe he's faking not being here. I'm kidding. That's man. Figures. I was having way too much fun speaking with him. I hope you did too. I guess I'll just have to get him back another time. I hope he's okay. Because honestly, if you read his book Moon Man, you would know that he's been targeted. Oh, there he is. Let's try again.
This one?
Wow. Okay, that was weird. Are you there? Oh, wait a sec. Come on. Sorry. Okay. Why is this not letting you in? There we go.
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, you're on now. I'm sorry. That was weird.
That may have been my fault on my
Oh,
end.
okay.
I'm in another country at the moment, and I
Okay.
have solar backup. And when the panels overload, it switches to something else, and I think
Okay.
that temporarily throws things off.
All right. Well,
Reset the modem.
thank you. I'm grateful that you're back, and I'm so anyway. What I was just showing you this week. They're offering. I don't know if you saw that. Let me see if I can get that back. Some company, and this isn't the first one, by the way. I've seen this plenty over the years. If I can find it. Come on. Oh, here. Guru Space. Guru Space takes $1 million reservations for a lunar hotel. Supposedly it's going to be plans to build a hotel on the moon by 2032, which I don't know how long it would take, but so, and this article came out just this week also. These people obviously coordinate this stuff, right?
I think so. That's a good point.
So anyway, I just thought I'd throw it out there. I was shocked when I saw it because I'd finished reading your book and I'm looking at this going, man, these people are either completely nuts and they believe the lie, or this is just more of a psyop.
Well, yeah, basically, Congress did not want to start the Vietnam War, so they fabricated
Gulf of
a
Tonkin.
reason to trick them into passing that law.
Yeah.
And they were told during the Vietnam War later that they could enter Vietnam, Congress said, but they cannot go into Laos and Cambodia. We will not finance that.
Yeah, but they did it anyway using drugs.
Well, and Apollo mission.
Oh, really?
Because they're only achieving Earth orbit. So they embezzled as much as 80% of the Apollo budget program.
Okay.
And that's where some of the money came from.
Wow.
So what these, this article and other things can be are scams front.
Yeah.
For, for grabbing money. This could just be some guy's business scheme.
Yeah.
Because if it gets postponed, he gets to keep the money. If the program collapses, he gets to keep the money.
Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to bring up that came to mind about the fallen angels being here on Earth.
Yeah.
Revelation says, but woe to the earth, because the devil and his angels have been cast down to you.
Yeah.
And he is furious because his time is short.
Right.
He's taking it out on us.
Right.
And so I believe we're living in the last days. And seeing how you're a Christian network, I thought I'll mention this to you.
Okay.
I've written a screenplay about the last days. It's a dramatization about ex-military hitman, slightly based on the Cyrus Eugene Akers person.
Yeah.
Who is haunted by his memory of having to kill a close friend to keep a government secret. Doesn't have anything to do with the moon landing fraud. And in the story, he's dying of heart cancer. He was always told he's hard-hearted.
Yes.
And so he's going, to his ex-wife who, because of the court-martial, left him with his son. He's trying to reconcile. And even though his ex-wife has like a cross around her neck, she says, "I'll never forgive you, burn in hell." I wanted to show the weakness of false Christianity, which is a lack of forgiveness. Right. God says, false forgiveness is, "I forgive you, but I'll never forget." But that's a lie.
Yeah.
Because God says, "I will remember your sins no more."
Right.
So this is why we can't hold grudges. And if we do, we're really not Christian. And so he's rejected. And the film in the background has all of these strange end of the world type of things going on.
Wow.
And we follow him as he's seeking forgiveness. and as he's partially through the film, born again, even though it's technically a secular movie. Now,
Yeah.
there's an actor, producer by the name of Kevin Sorbo.
Oh, yeah, he lives right up this. Well, sorry, he lives north of Trump, Mar-a-Lago. I'm south, but I
Oh,
communicated with him a little bit. Yeah, he's an interesting guy.
well, he thinks it's one of the best screenplays he's ever read,
Wow.
and he wants to produce it and star in it. So, seeing how you
Wow.
mentioned you can have a hotel reservation on the moon for $1 million,
Yes.
we're trying to raise $2 or $3 million to produce this film, which
Uh-huh.
is called Silence in Heaven.
Wow.
It says in Revelation 8, when the seventh seal was opened, there was silence in heaven. Now, why was there silence? In my opinion, because the judgment on the earth can no longer be stopped, and most people aren't going to make it.
True.
And it causes this dead silence in heaven
Wow.
because of the sadness of all the souls that will be lost. Jesus said he was not sent to the Gentiles, he was sent to Israel, meaning the church. And to the church, he said, wide is the gate, broad is the road, and most people who think they're saved are not.
Okay.
Narrow is the way to life,
Oh,
and
man.
only a few find it.
Yeah.
He said in Matthew 24, because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most believers will grow cold, but only he who holds to the end will be saved. We have to
Mhm.
get saved, and according to Jesus, stay saved.
Right.
And so the film is basically about the world ending and a man seeking redemption right before the world ends. And he's a murderer seeking forgiveness. And even though he
Wow.
doesn't get it from his false religion, ex-wife,
Yeah.
he does find it. He meets the widow of the person he killed, and she forgives him right before he dies, right before the world ends. And so that's the film, Silence in Heaven. We're trying to raise $3 million. And Kevin Sorbo is going to star in it and produce it with me as the director and writer. So
Wow.
put the word out there. If there's
Yeah.
some rich believer who wants to be an executive producer or, on a feature film
That's
about
amazing.
the last days, to help the lost world turn to God, then get in touch with me through my website.
Absolutely. Sabrel.com. So since you brought that up until March of last year, 2025, I believed I was saved until my wife and I went to a deliverance ministry to help her with the cancer, praying for a supernatural intervention. Well, we also did some, deliverance of possession, demonic possession. That was wild. But in the process, the pastor said to me, he interviewed both of us, and he said to me, "You're not really saved. You just think you are." And I said, "What?" Well, I said, "I was baptized by my dad. He was a minister when I was a baby." He said, "That doesn't count." And I said, "But I met this guy in Santa Monica on a street corner, and he had a little notebook, and I accepted Jesus." And he goes, "Yeah, but you didn't really believe that Jesus was God, did you?" And I said, "No, actually I didn't." And he goes, "Okay, look, you do whatever you want, but if I was you, I would get saved right now." And so and I said, "Okay, well, how do we do that?" So we walked through it, and man, that was intense. I had a chance to have a relationship with God 40 years prior, and I turned it down because I was scared and I was confused, and I really didn't. I thought people that meet God face to face are crazy. That's what I believed as a young man. So when it happened to me, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, I don't know. Thank you. I don't want to be part of this. I got enough problems in my life, which is very, very egotistical, very stiff-necked, hard-hearted, like you were saying before. So that's where I was. So even when I met Kevin online, I wasn't there yet. I wasn't really saved. But like I said, I was humbled. I had to literally be brought to my knees in order to, because my wife, it was a life and death situation. In fact, that's how I met God face to face 40 years earlier, was a life and death. It wasn't me, it was somebody else. And I actually saved them physically, but God put it upon me to actually deliver a message to his family to save his soul. And it literally came through me like I didn't even know what I was saying or why I was saying it. And so God was already using me and showing me the way he wanted me to go. And I'm just like, no, 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 don't put this on me. I can't, no. Okay. So he's looking at his watch 40 years later, which for me is like an hour. It's like, yeah, I'll see you in an hour. Okay. I'm sure you're going to change your mind in an hour from now. And I'll be here. I'll be waiting for you. And that's what happened. I'm kind of giving you the cliff notes here, but powerful.
Yeah, that God must really love you to let that happen, because this is why it's so important to read the Bible.
Yeah.
One of the things, if I may share,
Go ahead.
We'll go back to the beginning. So from from 4 to 14, I thought the moon missions were real. At age 14, I saw someone on TV suggesting they weren't real. Went back and looked at them and thought, there is some strange anomalies in the pictures.
Right.
At 24, I was put in touch, or I actually was working with the guy who produced the show, the TV show I saw 10 years earlier. And he put me in touch with the source at NASA who said they faked it. And then he said, you're a filmmaker, you should make a movie about it.
Right.
And I originally turned down the project because I thought, there's at least a 1 out of 4 chance that they faked it. And if I start digging, and I'm kind of relentless digger, I could be risking my life.
Yes.
And I'm not going to risk my life for what Nixon did. So I turned down the project. And then another client was a Christian musician who said they would get my script to a famous Hollywood producer, which they never did, if I would do a favor for them, read the Bible. So they gave me a 1-year Bible divided into 365 reads. And I started reading the day the man stood in front of the tanks in China, June 3rd, 1989.
Tiananmen Square. Yeah.
That's right. And over the next 5 years, I read the Bible 5 times from cover to cover.
Wow.
And I still was not a Christian.
Oh,
it's
man.
like I could read a book written by
You mean you weren't
Beethoven.
saved, is what you're saying?
That's correct.
Yeah, there's a difference. Yes.
Yeah. So I could read a book by Beethoven on how to play the piano 5 times, but without a piano teacher, a disciple, discipling me, I'd still be playing with 2 fingers. So eventually, I was saved by a church that taught the infallibility of the Bible, absolute repentance before baptism, get rid of your pornography, your drugs, stop sleeping around, and
alcohol, etc.
Only marry a believer. Yeah. Whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so Jesus said, I think John chapter 8 also, that we'll be judged by the word. And there is no infant baptism in the entire Bible.
Right.
There is no recitation that saves you. Otherwise, it would be in the Bible at least once, right? We recite this and you'll be saved. Billy Graham said he invented that.
Really?
Billy Graham was a friend of the world.
Yes.
He went on Johnny Carson. He's a friend of presidents, friend of president.
Yeah, I know. I know all about him. Yeah.
And he said he made it up. He goes on Johnny Carson and said, hey, I was in Kenya and I saved 1 million people. Okay, so the guy in the back row was a mile away. Did he baptize him? No. Did he confirm that he repented? No. He just recited something Billy Graham made up and he labeled him as saved. He didn't save anybody.
Okay.
The Bible says you have to repent and be baptized.
Okay.
And there's no child baptism in the Bible. If you're old enough to get married, then you're old enough to get baptized. It's a good equivalent of it. Yeah. And then it says multiple times you have to stay faithful. If we deliberately go on sinning, no sacrifice for sin is left. It's Hebrews chapter 10. And so we have to use the Bible as our standard for it. And we love God. We have a relationship with God by simply reading the Bible. I try to read the Bible every day in the morning. and sometimes I don't, but I really work at it. I'm on my, I just keep reading the Bible over and over and over again. I have 2 bookmarks, Old and New Testament.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to be judged by. And we can't convert ourselves. We have to have somebody, just like I think Beethoven taught Mozart, I believe, or was it the other way around?
I'm not sure.
Mozart's student was Beethoven.
Uh-huh.
And even though I read the Bible, I still wasn't saved until someone showed me how to
Right.
put it into practice, like
Right.
Acts chapter 8, Ethiopian eunuch. So you thought you were saved, you're not, but better late than never. And the great thing about God is he says, paraphrasing in Ezekiel, if a man is unrighteous his whole life, and at the very end turns to God, all of his unrighteousness will be forgotten, and only his last remaining righteousness will be remembered for all time.
Mhm.
God says in the Old Testament, he doesn't want the wicked to perish, but to come to repentance. Jesus said, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
Jesus said, no one else said this except Jesus, love your enemies, because the Muslims are bombing the Jews are bombing the Muslims, and the so-called Christian America is bombing everybody else.
Right.
Nobody is loving their enemy. That's the
Yeah.
key. We're not against Bill Gates or the Bilderberg Group or whoever it is. They are sheep without a shepherd who we need to pray for and love. We're against the spiritual forces of evil in the
Right.
heavenly realms,
Right.
Lucifer,
Right.
fallen angels, and
Yeah.
things like that.
Ephesians. Yeah. Paul. He said it very well. That we were wrestling not with flesh and blood. I actually look. I'm an editor, so I think he missed a word. We wrestle not only with flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness and principalities and powers of the air.
No, I think it's more powerful to delete the word only. For example,
Okay.
and my many mistakes in life, one of which is a divorce. And when a divorce involves the custody battle of a child,
Yeah.
it's pretty ruthless,
Yeah.
fighting. And the Hitlerification, I call it, of the ex-spouse.
Oh, man.
And if I were king of the world, my hatred was so great, I would say off with their head and have a fried chicken dinner afterwards to celebrate. That's
Yeah.
why Jesus said, if you hate somebody, you're a murderer.
Ah.
And if you fantasize about adultery, you're an adulterer.
Uh-huh.
He actually makes the standard higher than the Old Testament, not lower.
Yep.
And so, in that anger I had toward my ex-wife, that's why it says our battle is not against flesh and blood. It's not against her. And of course, I was actually more at fault than she was. So it was mostly my fault anyway. But so it's like Bill Gates, he's the poster child of the enemy of the alternative media, whatever. But the fact is, the guy has been taught from the cradle racism, and the guy probably has a neurological disorder.
Oh yeah,
the way he rocks back and forth and the way he talks with his arms and hands, I think he's got a neurological disorder.
Yes.
So our battle isn't against him.
Right.
It's against the spiritual forces who are influencing him.
Yes, puppeting.
Without God in his heart, the demons come in. He has a revelation about how to depopulate the world that maybe a demon whispered into his ear.
Absolutely. Yeah, right? That's a good point. Yes, I agree. So speaking of being whispered into, once you're saved, my understanding is that the Holy Spirit can then speak to you, or in my case, through me at times. I don't proclaim to be, speaking in tongues, but on Pentecost Sunday last year, I woke up and I literally heard, "Here Comes the Sun." Everybody knows that song, right? One of the most popular pop songs ever, but the lyrics were different. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Dude, I know this is crazy, okay, but since you brought it up, check this out. Here comes the sun, do-do-do-do. Here comes God's son, and I say, it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since he's been here. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes God's son, and I say, it's alright. Little darling, the smiles returning to the faces. Little darling, it seems like years since he's been here. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes God's son, and I say, it's alright. Sun, 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 here he comes. 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 Little darling, I feel that ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since he's been here. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes God's son, and I say, it's alright. It's alright.
Yes.
Wasn't my idea.
Well,
No, that
maybe
wasn't.
when we conclude, you can play the song.
Oh yeah,
from-
I definitely want to. Okay.
In conclusion, I wanted to say after I read the Bible 5 times, I
Yes.
changed my mind, and it developed in me a knowledge of God. Things don't make themselves,
Right.
because evolution is actually the exact opposite of logic, because it says a lower form of life made a higher form of life. So how can something with the brain, without a brain, evolve into something with a brain? But in any case,
Yes.
so, and a judgment to come makes sense. And then it dawned on me that the faking of the moon landing is more profound than if they had actually gone. Do you understand?
Yeah. Yeah.
The faking of the moon landing is more significant to mankind than if they had actually gone. It proves we are fallen. It
Yes.
proves America is fallen. It proves our leaders are so much more corrupt
Yes.
than we possibly imagined. And then we are so delusional, we defend the lie by
Right.
persecuting people like me who are simply trying to wake people up. There's a scripture that says, have I become your enemy because I told you the truth?
Right. Right.
And when someone tells you you're not saved, then you should be grateful, because
Oh yeah.
they might be right, and that way you get saved. And when someone says, hey, the government's worse than you imagine, they faked the moon landing 6 times, you might want to say, hey, thank you. I didn't realize it was that bad. I'll be more careful with
Yeah.
in my dealings with the federal government. And this, may change, it may not change. I would ask your listeners to pray and fast that the truth about the moon landing fraud will come out. Jesus said to start a tower like the Tower of Babel and to not finish it means you're a fool. So the rebuke of foolishness of the Tower of Babel was known to the world. A famous Christian writer said about the Tower of Babel, the monument to their pride became a memorial to their folly.
Wow.
And then they had the boast about the Titanic, the ship that God himself could not sink.
Yeah.
So we had the Tower of Babel was never finished. The Titanic never made one voyage.
Hmm.
And then Richard Nixon saying, when he knew they were not on the moon, saying anyway, putting a man on the moon is second in greatness only to God making the universe.
Wow.
So the rebuke about the Tower of Babel happened. The rebuke about the Titanic happened.
And
This
Nixon.
rebuke has not happened yet.
Well, and
It's
Nixon got it too.
today. So my prayer, if people will join me in my prayer, for the truth to come out. And maybe God delayed the truth because after believing it for decades, making debunking videos about my films, when the truth comes out, it'll be all the more shocking
Wow.
and grab people's attention all the more. I believe God may have the truth come out as a warning before the end of the world to
Yes.
show us our folly. And that's why I changed my mind. I said, I'm going to die anyway.
Uh-huh.
And if they fake the moon landing, that's an important truth for mankind to know. It is worth dying for. And who knew I would literally risk my life in order to pursue the truth. And I found classified footage that 2 NBC News directors agree proves they didn't go to the moon. And
Right.
you can see it for yourself, and anyone with an open mind comes to the same sad conclusion that I did, that they did fake the moon landing.
Yeah, very
And
much.
the last clip of my book, at least originally, I have 2 more added clips that I put since the book came out, but is a song I wrote about my adventures,
Okay.
making these movies and investigating this. If you want to play that on the
Yes.
way out, we can do that. And if you want my book, I read it myself in audio, Kindle or print. And I also have a book about aliens and what they really are and rogue planets.
Yeah, I got to read that.
There may be a rogue planet coming by, which will cause the tribulation. And then I have below that a new children's book about the moon people faking a trip to Earth under the
Oh.
leadership of Dr. Von Wrong. So it's the first conspiracy book for children. If you go to Sabrel.com, and I have 3 books available, the Moon book, the most important one, the Alien and Planet X book, and then the children's book about the moon people faking a trip to Earth under Dr. Von Wrong. And we'll end with this full screen. This may be a good way to go out.
Yes.
And if you want to check out the material, just go to Sabrel.com. S as in Sam, I, B as in boy, REL, Sabrel.com.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I mean, thank you personally for all the work that you've done and all the work that you're doing on behalf of God, because I do recognize that this is you're being of service to God. When this is not just for our edification, this is for our betterment as God's children, right?
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So here we go with this. This is my first time listening. Very excited about this. And it is playing. Hang on, everybody.
You can make it full screen if you want.
Oh, yeah. Hang on.
When I was born in 65, Grandma Ruth said never lie. The key to life was only truth. Listen to Grandma, old Ruth. In the Bible, Ruth refused to go until the truth she was to know. Great God man said truth to be, would loose my chains, set me free. I grew up dreaming to tell my stories of fancy tales of angelic glory. Instead my train derailed my truth, my dear old grandma, old Ruth. She said the truth was worth to die, to beat old Satan, to beat his lies. I left my dreams to fight for truth, and dear old grandma, old old Ruth. A funny thing, my first big film, loved and hated like the heat of a kiln. Hero to some, others wish dead. Hard success, hard head. Astronauts wild, I never flinched. My armor was the truth I pinched. Nervous now, that hour was groovy. Sweaty palms just watching that movie. I grew up dreaming to tell my stories of fancy tales of angelic glory. Instead my train derailed my truth, my dear old grandma, old Ruth. She said the truth was worth to die, to beat old Satan, to beat his lies. I left my dreams to fight for truth, and dear old grandma, old Ruth. And cursed, punched in the face, I'm facing this life of the human race. Some say patriot, some say traitor. Guess it depends on historical speculators. Astronaut son to the CIA, to take my life far away. Instead the curse fell on his head at 26. He's stone cold dead. I grew up dreaming to tell my stories of fancy tales of angelic glory. Instead my train derailed my truth, my dear old grandma, old Ruth. She said the truth was worth to die, to beat old Satan, to beat his lies. I left my dreams to fight for truth, and dear old grandma, old Ruth. Seeds to root, grow up large, a truthful shoot. Then someday when I am old, they'll tell my story I long ago told. Except now they'll say, instead of Ruth, Bart's the grandpa of this old truth. Not really true, 'twas Bill before me, and Jesus my brother, waiting for me in glory. I grew up dreaming to tell my stories of fancy tales of angelic glory. Instead my train derailed my truth, my dear old grandma, old Ruth. She said the truth was worth to die, to beat old Satan, to beat his lies. I left my dreams to fight for truth, and dear old grandma, old Ruth. Like dear old grandma, old Ruth. Love dear old grandpa, old Truth.
Wow. That's all I can say is wow. That was awesome. Well done. I know you had help.
And I appreciate the spiritual perspective, because that's what the moon landing fraud really is. It's a spiritual event. It's a blasphemous event, and it's proof of the fallen nature of
Right.
mankind.
Um, Oops. Too many buttons to push here. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
It's a yes. No, but you're right, and that's I was always familiar with this because I studied so many different aspects about fallen angels and stuff growing up, but and dealing having direct dealings with them. But it's I had never really equated it with the moon landing until I read your book, Moon Man. So, and getting to know your struggle and how you're attacked simply for telling the truth, because obviously they want to perpetuate the lie, which is they're just pleasing their father who's imprisoned here. That's why they do what they do. I mean, it's just, it isn't any more clearer than that to me now. And I hope other people realize that. And so when you say pray for a revelation of this lie, what is that? Can you be a little more specific of how we can pray?
First of all, for it to become a historical fact
Yes.
that they faked the moon landing. Maybe the president would announce it. Maybe
Wow.
he would announce it standing beside one of the few remaining Apollo astronauts. For it to become part of the historical record
Uh-huh.
that the Nixon and Johnson administration, for whatever reason, did falsify the moon landing.
Right.
For maybe a current NASA administrator to come forward, maybe a current astronaut to come forward and say, "Look, they told me they didn't go to the moon. We can't go to the moon now."
Yeah.
People have to love God and what is right more than man, more than their job. The reason why I changed my mind from being afraid to make the movie to doing it is I realized I'm going to die anyway,
Right.
and I might as well die for a just cause. And the truth about the moon landing is a just cause. From a secular point of view, I suspect the truth would never come out. They'll just postpone returning to the moon until
Yeah.
some asteroid strike or worldwide pandemic. And then at that point, no one's going to care who shot JFK or if the moon landings are real or not.
Right. Right.
However, from a biblical point of view, it seems like the truth might come out. And if we pray and fast that the truth will come out about the moon landing fraud, it'll give glory to God. It'll put mankind in their place. It'll cause godly reform in the federal government. And it'll show us our mistakes. If you have cancer and you don't know, you're
Right.
going to die. And it's better
Yeah.
to hear the bad news and maybe have one limb cut off and live rather than have the whole body die. And
Yeah.
that's what the problem is. If the truth makes us free, then lies make us slaves. And so we are slaves in the United
Yeah.
States and in the world if our greatest accomplishment is a lie that's being told to the masses to control them or to give them, a peanut that they want.
Yeah. Well, um, yeah, the truth will set us free, but the other thing is that we really are we're deceiving ourselves, and that's no way to live. And the other thing is forgiveness. If we don't ask for forgiveness, we cannot be saved. The grace is a gift, but we have to admit that we have sinned and that we've fallen, and ask for forgiveness. So I that's why I was kind of asking you how this might go. It, I would say, just say, Father, forgive us for perpetuating this lie for so long. Show us how to redeem ourselves. Give us enough courage, I think, is really what's lacking here in a large measure. Because you said in your book that people in other countries already know this, right? And yet most Americans don't want they don't want to hear it because the implications, the consequences are just too great for them, I suppose.
Yeah, there's some, I believe, Christian alternative media people like Glenn Beck and Tucker Carlson who
Uh-huh.
I know America has gotten bad,
Uh-huh.
but we went to the moon.
They said that?
Yes, they don't want to know that it's become that bad.
Okay.
Out your pastor as a child molester.
Right.
You don't want to go there, but but don't you want to know if it's true?
Obviously, yeah.
And so they're going to have to face that truth. They did fake the moon landing. You cannot have greater technology in 1969 than today. We have them faking part of the mission on camera. We have shadows intersecting at 90 degrees that should be parallel.
Yeah.
We have an eyewitness that saw them fake it and confessed to being a murderer to cover up the fraud. This is the proof. And you have to have an open mind. You have to be willing to be wrong. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. A
Right.
college professor told me that even if Neil Armstrong confessed that it was a fraud, he would still think he walked
Yeah.
on the moon anyway.
Yeah.
People have made a god out of it, and they can't do that. There's only one God,
Yes.
and they're being deceived by Lucifer. That
Right.
person is self-deceived. They had acknowledged that if a first-hand eyewitness told them it was a fraud, they still would want to believe the lie anyway.
Wow.
That's self-deceived, which is the worst kind of deception there is.
Yeah.
What good is it to gain the whole world and forfeit the soul?
Right.
We have to love truth and doing what is right. If people in the federal government really believe in God, then they will worry about what God thinks more than what men think. Because the number one tool to bring down corruption in the federal government is to show that the American people were deceived 6 times, played for chumps 6 times with their tax dollars about the moon landing. Show the American people that, you will have both Democrats and Republicans wanting reform against the corrupt federal government. So it's the number one tool, but you have to be humble. What is pride? Pride is the unwillingness to be wrong. I don't know if that's the case of some podcasters or alternative media people about the moon landing fraud. They're not willing to be wrong about it. You have to be willing to be wrong. That's what humility is. Pride is the unwillingness to be wrong. I used to believe and greatly worship the moon landings, and I had to accept the fact that they did indeed falsify them. Our government is that bad, is that arrogant, is that corrupt. Surely Tucker Carlson knows
Yeah.
that the CIA killed Kennedy.
Well,
Surely.
his dad
So-
was in the CIA. Yeah.
Yeah, so if they're willing to kill their own president, they're not going to have a problem faking a video image.
Right.
You
And didn't you
understand?
say that the code name was Slam Dunk?
According to President Johnson, he was the one who came up with the slam dunk
Which kind of
because
tells
he
you something.
said, if we fake a moon mission, then we can guarantee its success.
Right.
Von
Right. Right.
Braun said there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance it would work on the first occasion. So if
Yeah.
you fake it, your likelihood of success is 100% because you filmed the moon landing. It's done. You succeeded, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
But then they,
slam dunk.
yeah,
We don't have
but
to worry about killing the crew on national TV or failing.
yeah, but they still had to kill people in order to keep the secret.
They didn't have to, but they did.
Yeah.
No one has to do anything. They
Well,
did.
okay,
kill
but they
people.
they
Cover it
felt
up.
they did. Yeah, they would. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's a very, very, very bad situation that has to be resolved. I mean, you cannot solve a problem until you admit you have one, and this is a problem. This is a problem
That's
for
right.
all of us.
If the truth about the moon landing fraud does not come out, there's only one destiny for America, and that's down the sewer and
Wow.
off the edge of a cliff. That's it. They
Wow.
have to tell the truth about the moon landing fraud, or it will cause our own destruction. And God may rebuke America in the very near future
Uh-huh.
with earthquakes, meteor strikes, and things like that if we don't repent of the moon landing fraud in particular.
In particular, that's one of many, but that's the most profound.
That's right.
Yeah. Fundamental or foundational, yes, to our so-called culture, such as it is. Yeah. Okay. I get it. Wow. So thank you again, Mr. Sabrell, for everything that you do for behalf of humanity, such as we are in its fallen state. And this is a very important revelation that you are providing. So, and I know this was a great risk to your personal safety, but at the same time, you're being of service to God. So I know you're being protected and that you have a place in God's kingdom. So God bless you.
Well, I think about the afterlife and Judgment Day almost every day of my life.
I imagine
Am
you
I
do.
am I staying right with God? Am I reading my Bible? Am I repenting of my sin? Am I going to
Yeah.
make it? Paul said
Yeah.
so. He wrote 2/3 of the New Testament
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
said, I hope after preaching to everybody else, I make it. So
Yeah. He did say that.
we have to stay repentant to the very end. It's
Yes.
not a get out of jail free card. Hebrews 10 says so. You
Yeah.
can't deliberately sin after the knowledge of the truth and expect anything except a consuming fire from God.
Right.
So get saved and stay saved and help other people do likewise. The
Right.
banquet hall is prepared and it's mostly empty seats. And that's our fault because the harvest is great and the workers are few.
Yes, many are called,
So,
but few are chosen because, well, we just don't live up to it. And so, I mean, really, we can't blame anybody. I know a lot of people play victim. But I really don't like that. And I don't feel like a victim. I just know that I've fallen short and I'm still working on it. You know, it's a work in progress, but I'm blessed. I truly am, even through the hardships. If it wasn't for the hardships, I would have never even been motivated to move to the next level and have this a deeper relationship with God on His terms, not mine, on His. Anyway.
yeah. Well, all we can do is read our Bible every day and stay repentant, and God will take care of the rest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks again. Thanks. It was really a pleasure meeting you and getting to know more about you. I'm going to read more of your books, and that was a great music video, by the way. Thanks
No
again for
problem.
that.
Well, God bless.
God bless you. We'll see you later.
All righty. Check out Sabrel.com for anybody who wants to know more.
Thank you. We'll do.
Take care.
Good night. Wow. That was pretty amazing. I mean, I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. I think I'm having more fun than anybody when he's doing this stuff. Again, just in case you didn't know, the reason I haven't been doing more video interviews with people like Mr. Sabrel is because my wife is, she's still in recovery. All right. And so I have to prioritize, she obviously comes first. So, but things are moving in the right direction, and thank you for your prayers and your well wishes. I am going to do another live interview in a couple of days with minister that I met recently, and Judy Gregerson, very interesting lady, very, very fascinating, very godly person that I love dearly, and she's been very helpful to my wife and I. So look forward to that. And yeah, man, I think that concludes another salvation report. I'm sort of just blown away by all this, but anyway, until next time, may God bless you always and in all ways. Good night. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light up above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. I pledge allegiance to to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.